Hi, my name is Solo. It's nice to meet you. I'm used to talking to all kind of people, and I get along with them. People are happy in my cab, and I know how to handle the ones that aren't so friendly. I think that's very important for this job. I don't want to drive a cab. I've been doing that for 3 years. I don't want to drive a cab.
You told me it would cost $200. I'll give you $1,000 to take me there on October the 20th.
You want me to take you on top of some mountain where you're not meeting nobody, and you don't want to come back? Why do you want to do this? 6464? Have you ever heard of this place called Blowing Rock?
Blowing Rock is the only place in the world where the snow goes upside down.
What's going on, man?
Sold my apartment. Moving into a motel.
You have family here, right? Why don't you move in with them? Why don't families stay together in America?
Mom wants to talk to you.
I'm sick of you and that taxi. I don't want you in my house.
Listening to Filmwax Radio, episode 500. What am I doing? That clip that you heard coming into the episode is from Ramin Bahrani's film Goodbye Solo, his third feature. This is kind of exciting. I mean, I was pursuing getting Ramin on for a long time. There were months of emails back and forth just trying to coordinate around a busy guy's schedule. You know, he teaches at Columbia, he's writing a new project, he's got this HBO movie that came out, and it's summer, so there's all sorts of obligations and what have you, and it just was a little tricky. What's your favorite Ramin Bahrani movie? He's made about half a dozen features, a couple of shorts that he's known for. It was a case where I think I just started really getting into independent film, like right in between his first and second films. When I got out of the music industry in 2006. So at some point later in 2006, I was already like starting to approach independent films, which I've been watching for years and loving for years, but kind of getting to really know filmmakers in the industry started in 2006. You know, Man Push Cart had been out for a little while, and when Chop Shop came out, I had been reading about it. So I made a point of seeing Chop Shop, and then I enjoyed it so much. I found it so gratifying. It's like this new filmmaker who was making films back like they were in the Neo-realism genre again, in that same way, with that authenticity. And they were shot like on the streets of New York, streets that I grew up seeing, and that, you know, or that I worked around the corner from. Nothing really glamorous, you know, just, it was like almost like watching documentary. I know that sounds a bit cliche, but it applies here. So went back, watched Man Push Cart on DVD or whatever it was, and I said, "This is somebody who's really fascinating. Who's making these films?" And his name is Ramin Bahrani. I thought he was an Asian filmmaker making movies abroad somewhere. I didn't know he grew up in North Carolina. He graduated film school with like David Gordon Green and Jody Hill and those guys. He'd be back with his third feature, Goodbye Solo, in 2008. You heard a clip from that film just a few seconds back. In 2012, I was working for the Tribeca Film Festival, and I was excited to see on the list of the Q&As that I was offered to volunteer for after watching however many 100 films for Tribeca Film Festival. Then you get the honor of doing Q&As. Now, I do enjoy doing Q&A. I enjoy meeting the film festival audiences. It's fun. And among those on my list was Ramin Bahrani's At Any Price. So I watched it ahead of time. And I was surprised. Now, all of a sudden, Dennis Quaid was in it. And Zac Efron was in it. It just seemed all of a sudden out of place. I didn't understand why all of a sudden there were Hollywood stars in this filmmaker's film. But he had changed course a little bit and followed up at any price with 99 Homes, which began his collaborations with Michael Shannon, and was very much of it the moment, dealing with the mortgage crisis, the housing crisis of the late aughts. We're going to talk about that pivot that Ramin made between Goodbye Solo and At Any Price. We're going to talk about 99 Homes, the making of that film. We're going to talk about Fahrenheit 451, a film he adapted. And he really struggled with that adaptation. It was a real challenge for him. He's working on a couple of new projects. He's going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff. It was fun to meet him. He's a sweet guy. He lives in North Brooklyn, and he asked if we could meet in North Brooklyn. And, of course, I'm going to say, yes, we can. And I don't have a space in North Brooklyn. So I said, let me find a location where we could do this. And, I'm very friendly with everyone over at Kickstarter, which is in Greenpoint, their offices. And so I approached my friends there, the Kickstarter directors of the film department. Those are the people. So if you do a campaign for a film, these are the folks that you deal with. And they said yes, and they gave us this room, and we recorded it right there in the Kickstarter offices. So thank you to my friends at Kickstarter. You know who you are. Consider doing your next crowdsourced campaign with Kickstarter. Go to Kickstarter.com and check out all of the campaigns. You can contact me as well if you have any questions about Kickstarter. I did my own campaign last winter successfully with their help. And in a way, it has been part of the reason why the last year's bump in what I've been able to accomplish has exposed me to larger audience, and with that comes more access to great guests. There's no shortage, mind you, but it helped me quite a bit. So consider, if you're trying to increase your network, your support system, and your financing, consider Kickstarter for that. It's a little commercial for Kickstarter. Okay, here it is now. Ramin Bahrani on Filmwax Radio, episode 500. We made it, folks. And I'll be back at the end with a very short outro as we begin our next 500 shows here on Filmwax Radio.
All those in.
Do better than that.
Let's get cooking.
What? Sheriffs are here.
Why are they here?
My name's Rick Carver. I'm a licensed real estate broker. This home has been foreclosed on.
No, this is not happening.
I need you, your mom, and your son to step off the property.
This is not your home.
Mr. Carver, please don't.
Sir, you have 2 minutes. Pack whatever belongings you need.
Oh my God.
Does he have to stand there while she packs up? Is that right?
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
You comfortable?
Yes.
Yeah, wow, after all this time, finally.
Yeah, sorry.
No, don't be sorry. There's always...
I'm always like, well, if only one day I could be like...
There, lean in a little.
Successful as Woody Allen or Malick, I couldn't talk anymore. Like that didn't never seem to happen.
Well, you're in the scheme of things, I'd say you're successful, and also some of the success at the level you're talking about can also come with the cost.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, but it gets more and more complicated, I think, right? The more, I don't know. Is that good?
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should I sit closer, maybe?
Yeah, that's perfect. Well, when you're in between projects, it takes longer for me to book people. Like when they're just, just when I'm not going through, when you're not involved in that press junket phase where somebody's doing it for you, essentially, or with you.
Yes.
It's I think that then it's easier it's quicker, that part of the process of scheduling something. But when I'm just kind of doing it with somebody and there's so many moving parts, and then, you can book something 3 weeks from now, but so much can happen in 3 weeks that can...
Yeah.
So I'm used to it, and I don't get frustrated. If anything, I'm just self-conscious that I don't want to be a, as I mentioned a few times, like I just letting you know, this is all great, so there's no bad side to it if it's pushed off a little further, So thank you for agreeing to this, and it's really nice to finally sit down in person.
Thanks for even being interested to want to talk.
Well, I didn't say that. I am, but no, I definitely am, and I don't remember. I wish I could remember what put your films onto my radar at the beginning, like early on, but I was there pretty early. I think probably with your second feature, and then I went back and I watched. So I must have come on board with Chop Shop was the second. No, that was the second, right? So you did Man's Pushcart was first.
Yes,
which is remarkable. Okay, yeah. So then, and then since then, just been, and you're kind of quasi prolific, right? So we should mention, by the way, and let me get out of the housekeeping out of the way, because we are in the offices of Kickstarter here in Greenpoint, and so thank you to the people at Kickstarter for providing a space for us today that was relatively close to where you live.
Yes.
Unless the sun's beating down, then it feels very far.
No, it was okay.
It was all right?
Good walk.
Yeah, but you're wearing all black, and that's all right. Maybe it's not such a bad thing, but there's no hiding from the sun today.
Sometimes I think if I were to show up here in a yellow shirt, it would be so weird.
Yeah, it would have been.
I'm always trying to think that if the movie I'm making, will it look like a black T-shirt? Meaning, would it fit me? Would it suit me?
Right. You generally, well, I don't know. I only seen you one other time live. You want to know where that was?
Yes.
So coy. No, I saw that wonderful event that you did with Steve James. You know where I'm going with this, at in Midtown.
Yes.
At the...
when he was winning a prize.
No, it was a screening of Life Itself?
Yes.
Where Steve and you...
Oh, and Chaz.
That was
at the MoMI, I think.
No, it wasn't MoMI. That was at the Paley Center, wasn't it?
No, I think it was at MoMI.
Oh, I may be wrong. Okay.
In
I remember it being at the Paley Center, but I could be wrong. Paley Center in Manhattan.
The event I had with Steve in Manhattan was I was giving him an award for Best Documentary that year.
Okay.
And I just made a talk for him and his film, his great film.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see his new TV series. I saw a trailer for it.
Oh, was there a trailer for his new show?
It looks great.
Okay.
He's in a high school. I think it's maybe 10 parts on Starz Network. It looked very good.
Oh, really? I'm so far behind.
Good.
Yeah. Is that being done out of Chicago?
I think it's out of Chicago again, yeah. He's based in Chicago.
No, I know. And then Kartemquin usually produces
I think it's his company, I think. No, I don't know.
No. But he's heavily, he's like, I don't know if he's technically an employee, but they produce their producer partner on most of his works, and he's been great. Also great on. We've done a couple of these.
He's very good.
Yeah. He's a sweetheart.
Yeah.
But so I didn't really have like a hard agenda here, except it's because it's kind of. This is now also, I want to mention, this is my 500th podcast. So I do try to line up a special guest. Consider yourself special for each, if I can. And so thank you also for helping me make that happen.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Otherwise, I might have had to call up Steve, and he would have been fine too. This is terrific. I can't even wrap my mind around it. But it's surprising once you start doing it. There is a kind of an addictive quality to it.
I think it's good just to get up and do the work every day. Otherwise, what would you do?
Well, I am doing other things, but what happens no matter what my mood is. If I'm feeling very happy, it brings me down. If I'm feeling I'm kidding. It's the opposite. If I'm feeling a little bit down or whatever, as soon as I start to do this, it really sort of just. Has a kind of a medicinal value to it. It makes me feel better. So that's probably part of why I am doing it. Have you done any other podcasts? You must have.
I think so. Sometimes I don't know if it's for radio or podcast, but I think I have done.
Right, and so many of the radio shows repurpose them as podcasts. That's right. That's right. Yeah, I just put the word radio in my show. That's my way of solving that problem. Although it did start off as radio, internet radio. So let's do a little bit of reminiscing here. When did you get? Because I don't know. When did you first decide like film was going to be what you wanted to what you wanted to do, or did that?
Probably in high school.
Was that in North Carolina?
Yeah,
excuse
North
me.
Carolina.
Yeah,
Winston-Salem.
Right.
North Carolina, and I had grown up doing a lot of visual arts, painting, drawing, things like that, and by the time I got into middle school, I started getting more into reading, and started reading a lot, and then started writing short stories and sketching out ideas, stories, and I had a teacher in high school who started showing us movies, which it had never occurred to me that someone in school would show us movies. And he was focused a lot on the American films from the 70s. And so I started going to the Video Village on Robin Hood Road and renting VHS. There was either VHS or Beta. They had a red tab for VHS and blue for Beta. And we had VHS. And started renting movies. And then just started getting addicted to watching first whatever they had from American cinema in the 70s, because that's what my teacher was talking about. And then started getting into the classic Hollywood films, foreign films, whatever they had, which wasn't a ton, but I would just get all I could find, and then go into the library, the library downtown, and got whatever they had. Yeah. And you start finding things that you like.
I like that approach to it, because it's almost like you're just sort of going on this open-ended journey or journey or adventure, where you don't have a specific goal, and so you're just like it leads you where it leads you. That's why that may be part of the excitement of cinema.
Some things are chance, right? Like by chance, what books are around your house when you're growing up, and which ones you pick up first. And we had certain books in the house, Iranian poets, and Dostoevsky, these Kafka. These were the books that by chance were hanging around. It could have been something else. And this teacher in high school said, Martin Scorsese, Francis Ford Coppola, Woody Allen, Robert Altman. These were what he put in front of us for some reason. And you go to the video store and they don't have a lot, but they have certain things, like suddenly you pick up
Apocalypse
Now, The Wrath of God.
Right.
And you're like, oh my God. So then you go to the library and you're like, do you have any movies by Werner Herzog? And they have Strotzek. And then you're like, well, what else can you, and you find, we were talking about Varda. I remember in high school seeing Vagabond, just being totally blown away by it. And these were the things that end up, those early years are the things that I think somehow form so much of your ideas and where you're headed.
Sure.
I see things now and I enjoy them a lot if they're new, like something I had never seen before.
Right.
But I don't know if it can have that same deep scar.
Interesting way of putting it. Yeah, I think. Well, I grew up in the 70s too, and I think these movies were coming out at the time. A lot of these films, and my parents just loved art cinema. So, I remember them coming home and talking about, Fitzcarraldo, and just intriguing me with like what they try to pull a boat over. What are you talking about? And I would just get these, and finally, when I was old enough, and films, and especially foreign films, became much more accessible or ubiquitously available to now it's crazy, but and just like then wanting to see everything by Werner Herzog, like this guy is, how can you be making films like this, and why doesn't everybody know about it?
Yeah, I know.
So were your parents in the arts or in academia?
No,
how come they?
No, they hadn't.
But they were from Iran.
Yeah.
So there was a big history of arts and academia in Iran. So
I mean,
they really just brought it with them.
Yeah, And I mean, poetry is a big part of Iranian culture for anyone, you know, whether you're in arts or in academia, it wouldn't make any difference. Poetry is just like a bread and butter there. No, they weren't involved in arts, and they didn't really have that much of an interest in movies. We didn't go to the movies that often. As a family, we would go to the movies maybe once a year. Okay. And it was typically to see a James Bond or something in the holidays, some big Hollywood movie.
Yeah.
Once a year, maybe.
Sure.
It's not really part of our...
Got it. So it was that high school teacher that really kind of...
That seemed to be a big part of it, yeah. And
was it primarily this one guy?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Van Brown.
Van Brown was his name?
Yeah.
Was that the last name or the first and last name?
That was his middle and last name, yeah.
Dutch style or whatever it is.
I don't know, was he Dutch?
Well, whatever Von is. Or
you know, then you just think about combining literature and visual arts, which I had been already enjoying, and then you start to move it into movies, you know.
Yeah. And then you went to school for it.
I left North Carolina, I came to New York. I wanted to be in, you know, the city and, you know, not be in a small town and different kinds of people and all the things you can imagine. And studied film theory at Columbia. So it was mainly... there was no classes in filmmaking for undergraduates at Columbia.
Right.
So I had great professors. Annette Insdorf was my first professor.
Oh, Annette. Yeah.
You must know her from
sure. I just ran into her last week.
And her profession.
She did the show, in fact. But she
really
also introduced me to Paul Schrader.
Oh, yeah, sure. And so she was my first teacher. Amazing professor, amazing person.
Yeah.
Scholar, academic, writer. And, you know, had other great professors there. Seamus was one of them, you know.
Yeah.
And took a couple screenwriting classes. That's what you could do as an undergraduate. And then just made short films on my own. I mean...
What years, roughly, are you talking about?
Like 93 to 96. And most of the short films were unwatchably bad. And I don't mean to say that like, actually they were good. No, they were really awful. Like, you couldn't even make sense out of the first four of them. They were so bad. Maybe the fifth and sixth one, you could almost say that they kind of worked.
You know he's going to be able to see these, but you can reflect on them. Yeah.
They're on Super 8 and on 16.
Right, yeah.
And I'm not even sure where they are anymore.
Oh, really?
One of them I still have it. I think it's even maybe transferred to a VHS tape. That one kind of made sense. It was the last one I made at Columbia. The other ones really... Anyway, they just didn't make sense. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. No one had guided me. Just kind of trying to do something. And, you know, that was what I did.
So you didn't go to study film for a graduate level?
No, I went back to North Carolina, and I didn't know what I was going to do, but my parents and my brother still lived there. And I had finished that short film, the last one I told you about, in Columbia, and it had been made on 16 millimeter, and I needed a place to look at it when the lab sent it to me. I had no idea, did it work? What did it look like? And a film school had just opened in the North Carolina School of the Arts, which is a university in my town that had been known and is known for dance and theater and behind the scenes in theater design and production, and quite a good school. A lot of people on Broadway coming out of this school. They had just started a film school. It was in maybe its third year. And I went there and asked, can I use your projector to watch this movie? And they were nice enough to let me do it. And then they said, hey, you know, we're looking to hire somebody on staff here to work in the production office on staff. And I was like, well, I needed a job. And I thought I could use the facilities to make another short film. Yeah. Because they had equipment and professors and people. And so I did that and made one more short film.
Was that Plastic Bag or?
No, Plastic Bag was made after my first three features.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Okay.
No, it was another short film called Backgammon.
I don't mean to
about
rush.
A small 6-year-old Iranian-American girl who wants to play backgammon with her grandfather, who's just come from Iran. This was, I think, the first film that was really pushing into what I started to do, which was all non-actors, extremely simple story, you know, kind of what I had been learning from the Iranian cinema, from the Italian neo-realist cinema. That kind of stuff became the first attempt at that was this short film.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about Iranian cinema, because it's clearly, if it came after you already were steeped in making films, or the idea of being a filmmaker must have already dawned on you before you really probably started to. Yeah, because it really started to be. I mean, it was coming into the country here.
It was coming at that time when
already,
I was in college.
Yeah, right.
I remember going through the olive trees at the New York Film Festival, and then I had Hamid Dabashi, my professor and now mentor, friend. He's been a friend now for 20 years. He was teaching in the MILAC department at Columbia, Middle East Asian Languages and Cultures. And he had a class on Persian literature, which I took, and then Middle Eastern cinema. And in his class, I came to encounter other Iranian films I had never seen, like Bashu, The Little Stranger, a film by Bezai, Amir Nadari's film The Runner, The Cow, Merjoui's film, and then Where Is a Friend's House, and Kiarostami's trilogy, which I saw the third part when it came to the New York Film Festival. So he was a big push for me in terms of knowing about that and learning about that cinema. Yeah.
Because was that The White Balloon? No. I remember that's when I was introduced to Kiarostami. No, that was Panahi, right?
The White Balloon was written by Kiarostami, and it was Panahi's first film.
Oh, that's right.
Panahi's first film. I think he won the Camera d'Or in Cannes.
Yeah, that was my introduction to. I think the first time I saw it, and just saying,
Lincoln Plaza, I think he played.
Oh well, I saw it at the New York Film Festival.
Okay,
that was my first time going to the New York Film Festival too. But and yeah, now I guess what we know in the sort of, I'd say, has transgressed into or transcended into the popular mainstream to some degree as far as American awareness. I guess you'd have Kiarostami and Panahi. Is that how you pronounce it?
Panahi.
Panahi? Oh, excuse me. Panahi. And now I guess Asghar.
Farhadi.
Farhadi, yeah. Well, that's good. I'm getting finally the correct way of saying.
But what was interesting about my time as an anecdote in North Carolina was it's when I became friends with that whole gang of North Carolina School of the Arts filmmakers. So David Gordon Green, Jeff Nichols, Craig Zobel.
Yeah, I know them all.
McBride, Jody Hill. They were all there at that time.
It's incredible.
And
it's a little mafia.
Yeah. I think David and I forged a friendship from then until now. And I'm friendly with all of them, but mainly with David. And Adam Stone, one of the DPs that came out there.
He just shot brand new. He has a new film that he just shot for somebody. I just had them on. Maybe I don't want to waste.
He's great. Yeah, he did a short for me, and I'm always trying to find a way to work with him again.
Yeah, I know. I just had somebody on in the last couple of weeks, and I was talking to them, and I mentioned, so it must be a very new film. It may not even be out. Maybe it was like BAM Cinema Fest or something. I can't remember. Too many people talking to too many people, but it's okay. Don't worry about that. We're drinking. It's a hot day here in Brooklyn, and we're drinking, keeping hydrated. So that's an amazing kind of, and it's quite a juxtaposition of thinking about these Iranian filmmakers, these American 70s films, and all of a sudden this cropping of troublemakers from North Carolina. This whole group of kind of funny, although actually David Gordon Green started out making very kind of serious stories, kind of in a similar. He stayed at home in a way. His stories seemed to come more from the South, at least initially, like with George Washington and Undertow, right? Some great films. Also, a little bit you could almost see a neo-realism strain in there. Not quite as maybe pure, let's see, as your early films, but before this inexplicable transition that he made, which I'm just curious. I've had him on here too, and I tried to get into, because he's asked that probably by every interviewer, at least a few years back when he did make that transition, and I was always trying to get a little bit further, but he won't really he won't go so internally to kind of figure out, or it may just be very simple. I just needed to make money, and
I don't know if things are as simple as make money all the time.
No, they're not all the time.
First, if you look at George Washington again, the humor in George Washington, you can see it in his bigger, let's say, studio films. That kind of humor's already there. It's in all those Schneider character and those kind of gang of those white people on that train tracks. They have that humor that he puts in his studio films. So that's already there. And I don't know if things are as simple as always making money. I mean,
no, and I don't mean to suggest that they are.
You do get one of the things that American independent filmmakers contend with that is maybe different than our colleagues in Europe or the Middle East or East Asia or South America, Southeast Asia and elsewhere is there's no government funding for these small films. So a lot of us, David, Kelly Reichardt, Sean, so many people, So Young Kim, these people from my generation, it's like at a certain point, you're like, damn, I made this movie, and Adam and all these critics said it was good, and we went to the big festival, and all the critics said it was great, and then you like struggle for someone to buy it, and then they put $2 into marketing it,
yep.
So no one knows it exists,
right?
And then no one goes, and then that's the end of it. So
that's really what I was using shorthand to get at. I mean, I don't mean to suggest selling out, because that's not what I was saying. I'm just talking about really just, working on a platform where you're going to get people into the theater, where people get into the theater to see it, where you have sitting in a position where you'll have choices, more choices.
I mean, it's
and
tough,
resources.
But I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's just it is what it is. Mm-hmm. The same as when
and how patient you are, potentially.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think it matters if the Dardenne brothers or Ken Loach or Mike Lee. Mm-hmm. They don't have to make their money back. And that's why when you watch their DVDs and you listen to the commentaries to learn, which I like to do, they always advise shoot in sequence. And I'm like, well, why don't you come and try that here? Because there's no time. There's no money to buy the time to shoot in sequence, So it's a different reality, but, speaking of David, I like that he goes back and he turns around and makes Joe.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I think Joe was really good.
That's kind of what I was getting at a little bit. I agree with you, and...
the extras in Joe are really good.
Yeah, that guy that... I remember he died subsequently, but that older guy that was... I just remember Nicolas Cage having a scene or two with him on the bridge or something, and then he's a real scary guy.
Yeah. I like that movie.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen it since it came out, and it's a while. It came out, and I still remember that moment.
Good mood and atmosphere.
Yeah,
the whole film.
Yeah, and Nicolas Cage is really invested.
Yeah,
Would you work with Nicolas Cage?
I think he's an interesting actor.
Sure.
Yeah,
it's remarkable.
Yeah, when he's on, he's on.
Yeah. Dave and all those guys. I guess I was really just kind of saying there is a kind of a practical way of going about it, and maybe doing some Hollywood stuff, allows you then to make the choices and have more resources in order to say, well, I want to make a Joe now, and you're in a position to negotiate a bit more now so you can do those kinds of projects.
One for them, one for you is certainly an American cinema industry reality. Mm-hmm. Option. I'm not saying you have to do it. I struggle with that all the time. Should I do it or not? That's a reality that just doesn't exist. The Dardenne brothers and Ken Loach, they don't have to think about that question. Kiarostami, Panahi, they don't have to. That question doesn't exist in their mind. I would honestly, and I have the right to say this because I am brown. I'd rather deal with censorship in Iran than have to deal with this economic question.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Bold statement.
Well, that's what it is.
Yeah. Well, you certainly did both Man Pushcart and Chop Shop were done probably by the seat of your pants, right? Non-professional actors...
Solo actually the same. Solo was harder than Chop Shop in the end. Chop Shop, Big Beach came on board. I was about to make
Big
the film
Beach is
Big Beach is a production company in New York.
Okay.
I was about to do that film for, I think, $300,000. Man Pushcart the total budget was around 80 something, and then I had to raise. It got into Venice, and at that time you had to show it on 35 millimeter, and I shot it on high def cassette tapes. A Sony F900 was the camera, and I had to raise 50 grand to blow it up to 35. So just to blow it up to 35 was almost the cost of the whole movie.
Let's do a commercial for Kickstarter, right?
Oh, well,
wouldn't it have been great to have that at the time?
They didn't have it
No, I
back then.
got it.
We were just
Wouldn't it
like,
been-
you know.
Can you imagine if one of those, it would have been great.
So
In a month, you could have raised it.
yeah, that actually finding the 50 grand to go to 35 ended up being not that hard because I went to the biggest investors in the movie, and they said, okay, well, of course, you're going to Venice, we'll do it.
Oh, great.
Chop Shop, I was going to make it for about 300-400, something like this, and Big Beach said they wanted to do it, and they had just come off of Little Miss Sunshine at Sundance, which I didn't understand the connection. In fact, I declined to take the initial meeting because I was like, well, they'll never want to do this, and I should just focus on...
Why waste each other's time?
I really just said no, and eventually they asked again, and I went there thinking, well, I guess I'll just, go in for the meeting, and I think it was stupid to say no. It's better just say yes and. I didn't know that yet. Hadn't learned yes and.
Where you weren't improvising.
My friend Ali Farnakian, the founder of the Pit, People's Improv Theater, hadn't taught me that yet.
Yeah, yes and.
He's a great guy.
But were you a fan of the British Office?
I'm a fan of Ali Farnakian's and his theater, The Pit, and I learned from him about improv. And he was one of the founders of UCB. He came out of Second City.
Right.
I don't know much about improv. Everything I know,
but you know yes and.
I know him.
Yeah.
And he's one of my friends and someone I lean on for advice. He's a little older than me, and he grew up in North Carolina with me, but was about 6-7 years older and part of the Iranian Joy Luck Club.
The Iranian Joy Luck Club.
That's what he calls it.
What's that?
Well, back in North Carolina, there were so few Iranians that we would look each other up in the phone book, or our parents would, and they would find an Iranian name, and they would just randomly call.
Yeah,
and this is how my
like
parents
Facebook.
met his parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
Yeah.
Old school way.
Mm-hmm.
So then Big Beach came, and that's how the budget went up, and I had more resources. I didn't need much, but it helped. It helped me not lose certain locations, and I had more time. And Solo again became very difficult to make because the money fell apart. 10 days, just a week before shooting, the investor just never answered the phone anymore.
That's never good.
No.
Yeah. Wow. So that was you already were shooting it. Is that what you're saying? Or you were about to start?
We were about to start,
okay.
And
what a nightmare.
Yeah, the budget was around $900, and a third of the money was coming from ITVS, and
they fund a lot of PBS projects, right?
Yeah, we had given the TV rights to them for this money, and but they were only going to give $100,000 for production. Then you get 100 more when you deliver a cut, and 100 more when you deliver the final film.
It's like some sort of blackmail.
No, it's normal. The money comes in stages.
Yeah.
And so I only had $100,000, and this other company was to do the remaining $600 of the total budget. And I went. All my cast and crew were in North Carolina. We were rehearsing, preparing, and I flew to Toronto for 36 hours to show Chop Shop. Chop Shop was in Cannes.
Yes.
And then it was in Toronto. And I met the investor there. I'd never met him. He came through 2 other people. But we had been in touch. We had been emailing. The lawyers were going over the contracts. I met him. We shook hands. He was so excited. I showed him what we were doing in North Carolina. He was so happy. I just didn't hear from him again until the day I wrapped the film. For some reason, he emailed to say we're not going to do it, as if I didn't know by then. And so the movie ended up costing $600 in the end. And in the middle of production, I was on the phone always, in between setups, trying to find more money.
Yeah.
What was amazing then was some people in the crew, including people I didn't know, cut their wages for me. Others said, no, you told me you would pay me this much, pay me, which was their right, and they had to do that. Some people who had come with me, like Michael Simmons and others, just said, don't pay me now, pay me some other time. That was a very tough one, because you're just making phone calls to raise money.
And and here's the time where you need to focus the most, right?
Yeah.
And you're trying to invest your energy into this important film, and it's still, you managed to pull it off, because it was probably your audience for that film was much bigger than.
It was my biggest one of the first 3 films.
Sure.
More people saw that than the first 2.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
I remember the reviews and the
commercials or ads, whatever for.
There were. Even I never saw them.
I may be making some of this up, but I just remember.
Roadside.
Roadside
Yeah, they did a very good job with it. Eric and Howard and this guy Dusty was working there at that time.
Oh, okay.
But Eric and Howard, they run the company. And they're really
Howard.
good. Yeah.
Okay.
They're amazing. And Dusty was there at that time, and they pushed it up the hill.
I always see them like alongside another distribution company. Like you'll see Roadside Attractions and
Amazon and stuff.
Yeah,
because they sometimes
exactly.
people hire them to release things, and sometimes they pick up a film on their own.
Right.
And here they acquired.
acquire.
They acquired this to release it on their own, and they were great.